Hi, it's Grim, and this video is WokeWater and ISIS set. Hi. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for your time and attention, subscription, comment, and all the good things you do for me. It's very nice. I appreciate it. First, I want to tag in the last week when I announced my project for the IDW Rat project, is what I'm calling it. And it's why Brett Weinstein never should have shut up about the telomeres. We do have time stamps now, but it's a work in progress because that's going to be a good one there. But that video was called Emerging Metacognition and something else. And the emerging metacognition has continued, as I shall demonstrate to you thusly.
And he's obviously noticed that I've been paying some attention to Hans-Georg Müller. Müller. Trying to get his name right. It's if I say Müller. I mean,
But look, emergent metacognition.
Georg Müller. Hi, this is Tim. I wanted to record a quick response to Paul Vanderklay's discussion of the definition of wokeism, the origins of wokeism. He's responding to a video by Hans-Georg Müller.
All right, so thanks, Tim. That's happening. But I can't let that go without cognating.
Try this.
coherent.
And as I said, in wrongly labeling wokeism as hard left or cultural Marxism. But if it is cultural, simply put, then it is not Marxism. Cultural Marxism is an oxymoron. Marxism is not about culture struggle, it's about class struggle. It always
Oh, these guys like to complain. If you make one little technical error wrong and they use that to completely dodge your point, like you're some kind of obfuscationist guys or something. The thing is this cultural Marxism has evolved. It's the evolution of Marxism. Like, Marxism clearly didn't work. There's this other part. Hold on.
How are you really going to criticize people for saying they're Marxist when some of them are basically saying, yeah, that's what we are, even if they don't have much of an understanding of what Marx actually said?
How are you going to criticize people for calling themselves Marxist when you have to call them Zer?
All right, I think this is really, really fascinating. Obviously, I agree with Hans-Georg and with Paul that many elements of wokeism, many folks who would call themselves woke, don't necessarily prescribe to Marx's theory of taking over the means of production and the revolution.
All right, you think you can come on here with your pretty boy face and your fancy microphone and camera and be wrong like that? What do you mean they're not trying to take over the means of production? They'll cancel you if you don't side with them. So if you're a producer and you don't side with them, what happens to your means of production? But anyway, the cognitive outsourcing and the metacognition that's going on here is really fascinating to watch and mind-blowing. However, I don't know how much attention Paul has for all of this stuff. And so if it comes that you start your own channel and he can't hear you, you can't catch his attention, you can let Chad know what you're up to. He's now covering the discussions people are doing, such as the one I did with Chris Petkow.
Just a little, I think Grim made me nervous. He's intimidating. Because,
What?
Like,
That's ridiculous,
got
sir.
Ideas. And
I do have ideas.
And he did an interview with Grim Grizz, and then he did an interview with Ian or Ivan. I can't remember the damn dude's name.
So there you go. You see, there's a lot going on in the community and the emerging metacognition. Good to follow up with that. The IDW Rats thing is in the works. I have the clips. I just need to clip them and run them together and make it beautiful for everyone. But however, I wanted to address this wokeism issue you guys are having a problem with. It's ISIS and Set, okay? And it's funny because I was looking at this And that was before I was in it. And I was like, oh, it's like these three guys all looking up at this cloud of wokeism, saying what shape they see. They're like playing the five elephants game with the cloud of wokeism. But the cloud of wokeism is a fart out of ISIS's ass. And I will now attempt to explain that to you this way. This way.
She's like the queen of the underworld, right? She's the queen of the hyenas that live out among the death. But, okay, anyways. Seth, Osiris, Seth, Isis, and Horus. Here's how the story goes. Osiris is a great king. He established the Egyptian state. You could think about him as the embodiment of Egyptian custom and tradition. He was great when he was young, but he's not young anymore. He's old, and he's willfully blind. And what that means is that he doesn't see what he could see. He refuses to see what he could see. Why is Osiris old and willfully blind?
I don't know, but it seems to me that it could be that I'm dealing with some old and willfully blind people, and that they do not see underneath all these distraction and obfuscation buzzwords that conveniently get you YouTube views, that it's really just ISIS.
Why is Osiris old and willfully blind? Because that's what culture is. It's a paternal spirit that's old and willfully blind, and it's always that way, always that way. And the reason for that is because it's a construction of the dead. The dead aren't alive. They can't, so they're out of date, and they can't update themselves anymore. And you inhabit their corpse. Or he's old and he's willfully blind. He won't look where he knows he should look. He doesn't have the energy, or maybe he doesn't have the spirit. His brother Seth is not a good guy. And Osiris knows it, but he underestimates his malevolence and power. Every stable society is threatened by willful blindness and malevolence, always. Osiris turns a blind eye to Seth. Seth is happy about it. One day waits for Osiris to make a mistake and to be weak, and he attacks him and he chops him up into pieces. And he distributes the pieces across the entire Egyptian state.
You might not recognize it as Seth, but I want to read you something. A few months before I was born, my dad met a stranger who was new to our small Tennessee town. From the beginning, Dad was fascinated with this enchanting newcomer and soon invited him to live with our family. The stranger was quickly accepted and was around to welcome me into the world a few months later. As I grew up, I never questioned his place in our family. Mom taught me to love the Word of God. Dad taught me to obey it. But the stranger was our storyteller. He could weave the most fascinating tales. Adventures, mysteries, and comedies were daily conversations. He could hold our whole family spellbound for hours each evening. He was like a friend to the whole family. He took Dad, Bill, and me to our first Major League Baseball game. He was always encouraging us to see the movies, and he even made arrangements to introduce us to several movie stars. The stranger was an incessant talker. Dad didn't seem to mind, but sometimes Mom would quietly get up, while the rest of us were enthralled with one of his stories of faraway places, and go to her room, read her Bible, and pray. I wonder now if she ever prayed that the stranger would leave. You see, my dad ruled our household with certain moral convictions, but the stranger never felt an obligation to honor them. Profanity, for example, was not allowed in our house, not from us, from our friends, or adults. Our longtime visitor, however, used occasional four-letter words that burned my ears and made Dad squirm. To my knowledge, the stranger was never confronted. My dad was a teetotaler who didn't permit alcohol in his home, not even for cooking. But the stranger felt he needed exposure and enlightened us to other ways of life. He offered us beer and other alcoholic beverages often. He made cigarettes look tasty, cigars manly, and pipes distinguished. He talked freely, too freely, about sex. His comments were sometimes blatant, sometimes suggestive, and generally embarrassing. I know now that my early concepts of the man-woman relationship were influenced by the stranger. As I look back, I believe it was the grace of God that the stranger did not influence us more. Time after time he opposed the values of my parents, yet he was seldom rebuked and never asked to leave. More than 30 years have passed since the stranger moved in with the young family on Morningside Drive. But if I were to walk into my parents' den today, you would still see him over in a corner, waiting for someone to listen to him, talk, and watch him draw his pictures. His name? We always called him Set. Television Set.
Seth distributes his Osiris all over Egypt, so he can't get himself back together. Right? Things fall apart and they can't be brought back together. But the spirit of Osiris still lives in the pieces. So what happens? Order is demolished. What would you expect? Chaos emerges. That's Isis. Isis is queen of the underworld. She's Osiris's wife. Order and chaos, just like the yin and the yang. Order collapses, up comes the queen of the underworld. She's looking for order. Chaos cries out for order. She's looking for order. She goes all around Egypt trying to put Osiris back together. It's a state of chaos.
A snap, crackle, pop. I forgot to do the WokeWater bit. The WokeWater bit is this Wokism phenomena. It's coming through the water, and by water I mean the black screen altar of Set. These children of the screen have been born in the water, and so they cannot recognize it. And over the years, we've been evolutionarily getting better and better at training our people through these black screen altars to be advertiser friendly. And that is the key to the wokeness. You must be advertiser friendly. And anyway, they can't tell the water of propaganda and advertising because they grew up in it. And so until they learn to see the water, they will be as woke as the screens tell them to be.
She finds his phallus. She makes herself pregnant with it. And what does that mean? Well, it means it's like...
That's what we're looking for right now, ladies and gentlemen. The phallus to stick it to Isis and give birth to Horus. That's plenty for today. The next thing that comes out will probably be my IDW Rats piece. Meanwhile, stay tuned to the metacognition. Watch out for Isis. And maybe turn off the black screen altar every now and then. Look at the sun.